Hey everyone, I'm Bradley. Welcome back to the channel. It's great to have you here today. Today's video is all about the Brewzilla Gen4 series of all-in-one brewing systems. I am going to cover the 35, the 65, and the 100 liter. I'd like to be honest right now up front. Kegland did send me the 65 and the 100 liter to play with, and some of the goodies, as well as more beer helped out with some stuff as well. Here in the States, I do not have a 35 liter, but they're pretty much the same. Research it, mash it, boil it, ferment it, drink it, analyze it, share it. Home brewing is good. All right, so the very first upgrade, and this one actually isn't an upgrade that is sold. My biggest complaint with this system has been this stock valve. You know, it's kind of flimsy. It just doesn't feel premium. This is the lower valve. It doesn't have what I would call the absolute best flow on it. It's probably going to be hard to see here on camera, but that little the orifice inside of there is it's tiny, the actual opening for this. And I think that this restricts flow significantly. And I wanted something that had a lot more premium feel. And I don't know of anything more premium than Brewtools. So what I did was I took a Brewtools kind of barb fitting that's able to screw in with a back nut here and punched out a hole using a hole punch that's made to punch through sheet metal or stainless steel. You're going to want to get a 30 millimeter punch. I think the ones that I found are 30 millimeters and change, but right at 30 is on the money. The 30.3 millimeters is going to be just fine. So what you want to do is unscrew the stock valve and remove the actual hoses that go to it and the couplings that are on there, the clamps. So first thing to make this mod work, and this is going to open up a wide world, in my opinion, of possibilities and make the system a little more premium. The first thing to do is back off the nut and take off the little hose clamp and pull off the hose. Then you're left with an open hole that one went through. Then you'll take your hole punch, which is this guy here, and it has these little cutter teeth on it, and run that through the hole. Align it with the kind of the dimple that's in the front of the brewing system. I found that to be really useful to make sure this guy stays aligned and flush, and simply get it, thread it down by hand so this gets tight, and make sure it's centered, and then grab a wrench and just wrench on it until you hear each of the little teeth punch through. You'll hear like 3 little pinches or punch sounds as this thing punches the hole, and you're going to be left with a super clean, lovely hole, and it's really, really simple. The next step is going to be to take your kind of weldless fitting there with the barb on it, and I'll link all this stuff below, and you put that in the hole, tighten up the nut by hand. I wound up holding mine with a crescent wrench on one end and then a set of vice grips with like a microfiber towel on the other end, so I can get it tight without messing it up or scratching it too bad. This worked really, really well. Then simply all you have to do is just connect all the tubing back up. In my setup with my 65 liter I'm demonstrating with here, everything connected up perfectly. I didn't have to make anything longer or shorter. I did throw a better kind of worm gear style hose clamp on there just to make sure that everything was nice and tight. Next, well, now you have options. You have 34 millimeter tri-clamps available. These guys are sold by Brewtools. There's distributors all over the world. In the US, obviously more beer. So you definitely need one of these and at least a gasket. Now, if you're gonna run a 3-way valve, this is a clean core valve. These guys actually have their own internal gasket as part of their clean core design. So you actually don't need gaskets with these, just tri-clamps. They're pretty interesting. These are quite inexpensive compared to stainless steel. Of course, being Brewtools, they do have stainless steel 3-way valves and a single-way valve. Single-way valve, like this guy here, is probably what I would say the most effective or most useful. It's just a nice valve. They have a super good positive engagement. They definitely have better flow than the one that came on the system. And this is the one that I truthfully have been using and will be using in the future, unless I really want to try a 3-way, in which case I'll probably use a clean core just because I happen to like them. And this opens up the wide world of Brewtools 34 millimeter. You could also adapt from one of these fittings going straight to 1.5 inch tri-clamp. I'm sure you could find a similar fitting and be all out 1.5 inch tri-clamp if you wanted. One other thing to note, and is important, whether you're using the stock valve in your system or an upgraded valve like I am suggesting, which is truly sweet, is that, you know, the wort that's sitting in this and it's in that little bit of the line that goes to the T underneath the system is not boiled. So if you are gonna use it, best practices honestly would be to take a small amount out, maybe a gallon, and then dump it back in the top. Or if you have a hose hooked up to it, just recirculate through it to make sure that this gets sanitized with boiling wort. It's really critical. It is a failure point in the system as far as bugs and something growing in there. So keep that in mind, whether it's the stock valve or one of my upgraded valve suggestions. Really, you should definitely be pulling hot wort through this every brew day to make sure that you kill everything bad. There's one other option from Brewtools, and they have these cam lock fittings that go to 34mm tri-clamp, and they have the 1/2-inch cam that the Brewzilla uses, and this will work on all of the systems. So right away, you know, this is another good one if you want to go like me, using it as a sparge water heater. I already have hoses set up with this style tri-clamp on there in size. So for me, it's just a simple, easy plug and play option. And again, there's a lot of ways to do it, but this is one I figured I'd just throw out there because it is handy to have. Next up, we're getting into the kind of Kegland OEM accessories. And on mine, I do have the 25-watt pump. I found that the stock pump was adequate, but again, maybe limited based on that bottom valve, and this upper valve here, this little ball valve, has really insignificant flow. I would encourage Kegland to upgrade this, as they seem to upgrade everything. I'm really surprised that that's been left as it is. But again, I think the 100 liters come with the bigger pump. The 65s, the newer ones might be, but if you have an older system, I would really consider upgrading the pump. It's a little bit louder, but it's a lot more powerful. If you're using a counterflow chiller or something like that, or a plate chiller, you're gonna have a lot better flow, better transfers. You have better head height if you wanna lift wort up to a fermenter that's a little bit higher. It just, all in all, I think it's a worthwhile upgrade. The next upgrade is the heat diffuser, heat deflector dish. And again, this is standard on newer systems, but if you have an older 4th gen, this is just an add-on. It goes the bottom of the false bottom here, and it essentially helps kind of slow down that wort as it goes through the bottom of the mash tun, and it lets it go around it, so you get a little bit more even heating and more consistent heating. I found this to be really useful, and something I recommend. I don't know why anyone else isn't doing something like this, but man, this is one of those little gadgets that definitely works. Next up is one that I honestly consider a must. This is the Bluetooth temperature probe. This is the older model. There's a newer one that's a little bit bigger. I haven't had the opportunity to try it out yet, but I'm sure they are pretty similar. And this guy is paired via Bluetooth to your controller. And when everything's properly set up, if you've done a high and low calibration on your system's controller, and this guy is dialed in, I'm able to get temperature within a degree and a half, and this thing comes off obviously, and you can put it anywhere in the mash you want, and you're able to mash off of this while setting limits at what point, you know, the controller looks at this, if there's too high, too low, too far off. This thing to me is awesome. No one else is messing around with a Bluetooth one. I love that it's wireless. Again, this is something that I wholeheartedly recommend. It really helps me dial in temperature. And when I don't use it, you know, I know I'm leaving something on the table as far as precision and quality. With this, I guarantee I'm able to get to a higher level of precision than a pro brewer even cares about commercially. So the stuff we can do at home is truly awesome. Hey, if you've made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. I really appreciate it. Next up is the CIP Flow Rotor, and I have a whole video about this. It's an interesting little product. I really like it. It's pretty inexpensive. I would check it out if you're so inclined. I really go into detail about how it's best used, and I'm really honest about what I think about it, so definitely check out that video. Also, and kind of the cheaper end, is this recirculation spray head, and this guy works really well. It just dangles down and it sprays inside the mash over it. It's a good little sprinkler. I do like this. You know, I think that Kegland has shown it mounted in the lid. I haven't seen those components available. I think this would have to be extended a little bit to get best results down inside, but if they do something like that, I'd be really eager to check it out. Again, this is like 10 bucks. I do think it's worth picking up. Next up, you can see it over my shoulder, is the Pro Distillation Lid. Now this lid does clamp on with these really robust clamps here on the side. If you have an older system, you will have to get the newer clamps. Newer ones ship with better clamps that will clamp down on this, and it affixes super, super securely. What this is gonna let you do is obviously mount all sort of distillation stuff, which a software update has just gone out that puts this thing in still mode, which is gonna be just radical if you're into that hobby. But again, this is gonna let you drop on a steam condenser, which we'll get to in a moment. You could also use this to attach piping or other things just to control that boil off and that condensation. And it's something, again, that it's a little pricey, but if you're running a steam condenser, I think it's the only way to go. One thing I do wish that they had some sort of a silicone stopper on top, so when you're adding additions in, you don't have to mess with the plastic sight glass, which it's nice to have a window into there. I really think that's an awesome and a very lovely touch, but I would love to have a silicone one because the suction of the whole thing is gonna hold it on there when you're using it for brewing and you need to add hops or other additions. But again, something that was a little more heat sensitive, I think will go a long, long ways. Another thing, which before we get to the condenser here, my thoughts on that, is the Insulated Jacket. This is one that I like. It helps temperature stay a little bit more stable. You'll be a little more efficient. For me, it keeps the heat where I want it in the vessel. In the summertime, I don't want it any hotter in here than it needs to be. In the winter, of course, it's welcome, but it'll also kind of protect you from burns potentially, as this does provide insulation, obviously, and a barrier between you and hot stainless steel, which is always a good thing. Trust me, if you know, you know. Next up is the steam condenser itself. And to me, this is a relative bargain in the space. This condenser works really, really well. Truthfully, I've been using it for about 2 years now. It has an adjustable nozzle. I do wish the nozzle could be adjusted down a little bit further because I think it's using a little more water still than it needs to, but its consumption is still not horrible. But again, water is a premium here in Southern California, and I think many places in the world. So just consider that. One other thing to consider is how to hook this up to your water supply. It doesn't come with the hose connections because I believe they kind of differ around the world. I have mine connected right here on the top, and I really think best way would be to run it down remote because sometimes I get nervous about all the weight of a hose hanging on that Duo-Tight fitting. Now, it hasn't broken yet, so clearly this Duo-Tight stuff is quite robust, but it's one of those little things that kind of makes me nervous. But again, I haven't had a problem, so maybe there isn't one. The next thing, and I don't have it here on the 65 liter. I do have it on my 100 liter. I've had the 100 liter for almost a year now, maybe 8 months, and is a sight glass. Now the sight glass mod is available for all the systems, and I do highly, highly recommend installing the sight glass. At first I was like, yeah, okay, it's sight glass. You know, how good could it be? But once you've used the sight glass on one of these all-in-one systems, man, it is really nice, really, really, really nice. So I do recommend picking up that sight glass, and obviously it's not actually glass, it's a high quality plastic that's resistant to heat and chemicals and ingress and egress and all this sort of thing. Really nice piece of kit. I do recommend it. I've seen other sight glasses where you have a sight glass mounted the outside and it doesn't kind of have, it's not pushing wart back through it. The sight glass that's this setup where it comes up that main exhaust or exit pipe that goes into the arm traditionally, that is recirculated, so that's been boiled, so you know that there's nothing funky living in there, and that is critical. The same as the bottom valves, like I just mentioned earlier in the video. All right, guys, we are at the end of the video. If you made it this long, I really, truly appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. There will be links below to everything. Some of these links, whether they're Amazon or more beer affiliate links, I will earn a small commission, and I do appreciate it. That is the best way to say thank you. And again, remember, I've been Bradley. Home brewing is good, and I'll see you real, real soon. Hey, everyone. Am I fucking recording? No. Oh, I am. Shit's live. All right.